DCA adventure is rated F for fucking awesome.
What's going on out there, all you amazing people? Welcome to DCA Adventure. I am your host, Crypto Mikkel, as well as we have our co-host with us, DCAHR, as we call him. But
hey, yo!
So what is up? And we got a fluxing awesome special guest with us tonight, Mr. Daniel Keller, CEO Flux. What is going on, dude? How you doing?
What's going on, guys? I'm glad you had me on. I'm looking forward to chatting.
So, as most of you know, Flux is a mineable coin that I have covered numerous times and cover monthly node updates on my own personal channel. And so, here on this show, we focus on DeFi deep dive. So why are we talking about a mineable coin that is associated with DeFi? Oh, because it is. They have made huge leaps and strides this past year. We're just over halfway through the year, and it's gone from 0 to 100 already. So, man, tell us what's going on, man. What's up with this DeFi knowledge that you may drop upon us?
I don't know, man. DeFi is one of those things that I continue to keep learning. Like you fall down that rabbit hole and you're learning every single day. So I'm learning about liquidity pools and I'm learning about, all these different, decentralized exchanges and things like that. And it's very exciting. So, I think we're finally to the point in DeFi where things are starting to make a little bit of sense and we're getting some clarity around these pieces. And I think that's why, like you kind of alluded to, what the Flux doing here, because you're talking about, a DeFi based project, which is now on PancakeSwap and Uniswap and SushiSwap and 1inch Exchange and all these food flavor exchanges, whatever there are floating around out there. And kind of our focus on the project was to really kind of look at this thing holistically. And we didn't run out right away and run right to DeFi. DeFi kind of came to us, which was nice. And, you guys know very well in the crypto space, 1 week equals like a year in the regular world, right? So everything is so rapid and it iterates so quickly.
Yeah, it first started with KDA, the KDA DEX, which was a testnet for a while, but there is a beta version now. I do actually have that here. Share, which was over here, which is the KDA DEX, actually functioning. Flux, it is there. This was the first parallel asset that was actually handed out to Flux holders. If you had Flux in your Zelcore wallet, you were literally given this parallel asset for supporting Flux and holding Flux in your wallet due to snapshots, which have happened a few times now. We've had multiple snapshots since then. Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, and then coming up now is what, Solana and Tron? That's the next snapshot?
Yeah, and I am super excited about the Solana edition. I think that what they're doing with their ecosystem I mean, it aligns well with the ethos that we have as well. So, I mean, we'll be able to develop a lot of shit really quickly over there. And I mean, really honestly, watching them develop their ecosystem kind of in tandem with what we're doing, we think it in our minds. Well, it'd really be nice if you could do X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden, boom, here it is. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's awesome. So, yeah, we're gonna eventually see that. But just to kind of go to your point with Cadix, and the Cadena folks, I mean, that we wanted to be the very first asset, and we were the very first asset on their platform. And I think what these guys are doing is very ingenious. I think it's going to end up really changing how we look at DeFi. And I wanted FLUX to be there as well. So, you know, that was the reason why we kind of isolated that as our first parallel asset, because we believe that kind of getting in on the ground floor of some of these things when they're mature projects, that's why you don't see these guys rushing to drop something that's a half-baked product. They want to make sure that it's a fully baked product. And as a matter of fact, they even had some input about their wrap tokens and who they were working with. TokenSoft, I think it was, specifically around having some wrapped BTC and ETH, which is different than a lot of different platforms. So yeah, I mean, it was an opportunity, and we like the KDA guys, and we tend to, those parallel assets, we tend to gravitate toward the ones that we believe in. We're not beholden to any one particular platform or any one particular, you know, exchange or any one particular, because we're kind of our own thing. So if your ethos and our ethos is similar and we can see value in it, that's where we head.
I love it. And of course, all of this is, you know, facilitated in a app inside your Zelcore wallet, guys, which you can go to the Run on Flux website, and there is a download Zelcore button. If you don't already have it, maybe you should look into doing that. All right, so the Fusion app is what has been facilitating all of these snapshots, claiming your snapshots for now anyway. The app actually has a lot more functions coming out here really soon, from what I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, 25th, we're dropping Fusion. So let me backtrack just a little bit. So kind of give an explanation, because a lot of this is wonky. Like if you're a new user and you're coming to the space, it's like, okay, proof of work, you got nodes, you got this DeFi, you got these parallel assets, you got parallel mining, you got miner rewards, you got all these things. Break it down for me. And it comes down to this. We need to scale our network. And we looked at what we call soft scaling, which essentially rewards the individuals who are participatory in the network, right? This isn't an unusual concept. We know these folks have been with us for 4 years, and I know you guys have been supporting us just about as long, right? And we knew when we were rolling this thing out, we disregarded price, we disregarded everything. We looked at the technologies. How could we scale this thing and iterate this thing very quickly to get to the point where it's ready for mainstream? And one of the things that we really kind of focused on was this interchain operability. So if you're breaking this down for somebody that's just hearing this for the first time, you want to be able to work with different platforms. That's the holy grail. Being able to go out onto a different platform and provide liquidity, or maybe get into their staking pools, or whatever the scenario is, right? Let's take a step out of DeFi. Maybe you just want to participate in something they're doing on their network. Maybe it's NFT development or whatever it is. So our goal was to do two things: scale our network appropriately so that FLUX continues to grow as that decentralized computational network, and allow that participation with those other chains, that interchain operability. So basically, you think of kind of FLUX as this transient asset that really kind of goes from these different platforms. But the nice thing about it is it can always come home. So if I have, let's say, a bunch of FLUX KDA or FLUX Binance Smart Chain, and I want to stand up another node, I simply use Fusion as that point where I move from the parallel asset to the main asset, and then I can immediately set up my node and get rolling again.
So it'll be like the reverse of a Zap, as you know, in the DeFi space, turning one asset into an LP token by splitting it in half and allocating two. Fusion's going to do the opposite, unzap it from a dual asset LP token parallel asset to a singular asset, Flux or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Fusion is we're not relying on any third party for wrapping assets on another. I mean, you can participate in Uniswap or some of these other exchange because you create this wrap token, and the wrap token then goes on that platform, and it represents one of whatever it is on that platform and one on your primary platform. The problem was with this, and we're in the crypto space, you got to trust people to do that shit. Right? Whereas with Fusion, you literally have the native token, which is ETH is ETH. It is an ERC20 token. KDA, it's a KDA token. Binance Smart Chain, it's a Binance Smart Chain token. One of those equals one of Flux. And really what it does is it opens up the world for, miners, for node operators to build the primary platform up, but it also brings in your traders, your hodlers, your people that want to earn on their asset. They want to get to these other platforms, but still have the comfort level of, I can come back to the primary asset anytime. So
Right.
It's very different from anything I've ever seen in the space. That's for sure.
100%. I mean, I've been a miner for Flux for almost 3 years now. I've mined Flux, solo mined Flux. Done it all, as well as I run a node. So whenever all this started happening, I was like, this is amazing because I'm getting the option to spread into multiple different chains and ways to earn more Flux or passive income with what you already have. It worked out fantastic in my opinion. Grits has a question over here. He says, how long until the Flux ETH gas fee lowers, or how long will I have to claim as the gas fee takes a while to lower? He goes, I'm still stuck trying to claim. I'm the same way. I can't claim ETH just due to the amount of gas fee, and it fluctuates with Ethereum gas fees. So it kind of is what it is at that point.
Yeah, so unfortunately, all the positive things that we get from going to these parallel chains, these other platforms, we also inherit all the horse shit that comes with it. So unfortunately, ETH fees are ridiculous, and I believe probably the reason why ETH will eventually kind of be dethroned, because they're not addressing these components. Now, what we're doing is actually, as Fusion is being built, we're looking at a more scalable, instead of having fixed fees, it could be more of a percentage, and then it would be more seamless so that you'd be able to claim it at a more reasonable price. I would say ETH is the only one that we're having problems with at this particular point in time in terms of the cost. I mean, KDA is next to nothing to claim. Binance Smart Chain, pretty cheap, a little bit more expensive, but it's getting up there. And I can tell you the Solana setup, it's gonna be tits. It's gonna have it's going to be slick and cheap, and right. So a lot of positives with each one of these chains, but sometimes there are negatives. So to address that question is we review that fee on a regular basis, depending on a couple different things: the cost of ETH, the cost of Flux. Right. You're never going to time out. That asset is yours in perpetuity. If it sits there forever, it sits there forever. So there is
no ending claim date.
There is no
It's
no
still
ending.
yours per se, as long as you hold the keys to that wallet.
Yep. It's and I have people that are still like, I claim the other ones and I just let ETH sit. I'm gonna wait till the cost goes down, then I'll claim it, then I'll run it back to the main chain and I'll put it in a node. So
I claimed the largest amount that I had right before. It was the month right before they were saying that they were going through with EIP 1559 on the London hard fork. And when gas fees dipped hard down into the single digits, I took that opportunity and I was and swap real quick. Took the largest amount that I had, which was the node earnings, and took that in, and that I left the other one sit. You got folks that have used ETH in the past. They know the fee dance, right? So they know when to move shit. They monitor it. Then gotta watch it.
should never be like that, right? That's ridiculous. I mean, they're talking about fixing the scaling pieces. I don't see how they're going to do it, but anyone that's used ETH in the past, they understand that little dance. So long story short is we're very well aware of those challenges, and the good news is there's no time frame. So if ETH does fix the scaling issues, if they do fix the fee issues, it'll be there for you to claim the day that you feel like it's the right amount for you. So a lot of personal choice there as well.
There really is. Really isn't. Would the update of the Fusion app allow people to turn one parallel asset into a different parallel asset? So if you have like ETH, Flux ETH in your wallet, and you're like, I really don't want to pay the contract fees for anything on Ethereum, which is true in a lot of statements right now, would the new Fusion app release allow you to change it into Flux BNB?
So, like every other thing in disruptive technology, it's iterative, right? So our first pass, we're gonna look at it. We're gonna figure out how to get from the parallel chains. Well, it's already been figured out and tested, and it's released on the 25th. We move from parallel chains back to the main chain. The way that it would work now is if you had Flux KDA and you actually wanted more Flux Binance Smart Chain, right? You would have to come back to the main chain, and then you would have to move back to the next parallel asset. Now, what you're talking about is it's a 3-hop situation, which if anybody's ever used DeFi, that's a shit ton better than some of the things that we have to go through to utilize the DeFi platforms. However, I think eventually what you could see, right, and what has been talked about is that 1-to-1 swap on the parallel assets as well. So you never touch the main chain. This is a way of, because people always talked about one of our initiative or our roadmap pieces when we started the project was to build this decentralized exchange. Well, we don't want to be in the business of doing that, right? We don't want to be a decentralized exchange. But what we do want to do is provide the ability to move from those one chain to another chain and that interchain operability. So I think you could, in theory, and I think it's very interesting that you picked up on that you could move from one parallel asset to another parallel asset without ever having to touch the main chain.
It's definitely probably
and it'll save you some
roll-ups
fees there
allow
too.
That, I think.
Yeah.
So another question for you: what's the thought on Polygon? Are you going to have a Polygon asset? Because that one's kind of tricky in my opinion, because of like the way everything has been set up. Polygon is still like a side chain to Ethereum, so
yeah,
it's kind of hard to differentiate that. But the fees are really cheap, so it's like that's how I've been mining Ethereum. Is mining it to Polygon. It's because it's cheaper, especially still now. If you're mining Ethereum, it's the cheapest way to get most of your profit because you lose it in fees mainly, especially to the pools now.
Well, there are a lot of projects out there that are very interesting. So we announced the Solana and Tron as the next one. And anybody that follows the project knows we've announced 10 that we're committed to. And out of those 10, I will tell you, some of my favorites that I'm putting forward, obviously would be the Cosmos platform. We want to look at that. We want to look at Polygon. We want to look at Kasana and Polkadot as well. So really honestly, the sky's the limit. If the technology aligns with us, that's the key. So like you were stating, there could be some dynamics there that might be a little bit harder to mitigate. We haven't ran into that with any of the platforms yet. It seemed like that once we were able to mint the asset on the native chain, the native token, we could do that. But yeah, I think you could see this developing out in many different ways. And even we wouldn't limit this to tokens as well. I think you could eventually see the possibility. Well, I mean, proof of work is my baby, and I like to see that continue to keep developing out. So
when's the next snapshot? I know the Solana and Tron parallel assets is happening. Is there a date yet for that?
I believe that's October the 15th. So the 25th fusion, 25th fusion releases October 15th. We have the next snapshot, and we're pretty excited about that.
So speaking of proof of work is his baby. This is a little gem that I have recently picked up on reading through the Inside Fusion app Medium article is miner pool, which if you click the little payments button, there is a parallel asset payment. So as you can see, people have been taking out their payments in parallel assets. That's pretty interesting, man. That is like a whole nother world on your earnings. We were talking a little bit about this beforehand, and it's insane. It's definitely mind blowing. Trying to grasp that in your head as a miner. You're like, what? And then you're like, and it's still DeFi related aspects. And you're like, okay, so what's going on?
Well,
it's an interesting little tidbit.
The closest, if you're an OG miner, you remember mining ETH, and I believe it was Decred at the same time. You could do these, right. Dual mining. The algos were different. You could run them on the same hardware. You really look at it the same way here. So you're mining Flux, but you're also participating and mining vicariously through these additional parallel assets. That conceptually, why is that important? Well, it's important because we're creating participatory individuals in these parallel chains as well. So if I'm mining and I'm getting Flux KDA, I'm probably using Cadix, right? If I'm mining and I'm using Binance Smart Chain, I'm probably using their platforms, right? So if I'm mining ETH, maybe I'm participating in liquidity pools. So, there's all these different components that are, it's kind of the symbiotic relationship. And conceptually, it just takes proof of work to an entire, you're validating and securing the network with proof of work. Flux is more of a hybrid because of the node system, but proof of work is the underpinnings or the foundation of it. Right. And you're getting the best of both worlds. So you're able to move to these different platforms without all these ridiculous steps. So, our goal is to get everything down to 2 clicks. Literally everything, and even Zelcore and everywhere. We want 2 clicks to get you to whatever you got to do. This shit of 15 clicks to get to something and a 18-page tutorial is horseshit. And we need to fix that. And that's what's broken, and that's what we're working on fixing. So
I don't know. And so as we're kind of wanted to explore some of these things, because one, we do deep dives. And this is a very important thing that you need to watch out for as we're learning throughout this, that there is people out here, for every token, of course, people trying to get a hold of people that are just not as aware and not just doing all of their research. Make sure you do this. This is very important as we preach on this channel, and us, we say this all the time. Check your contract addresses. Just please do it. And if you were airdropped Flux on your Binance Smart Chain wallet, don't touch it. Just let it sit there.
And we always
stupid stuff. People being children.
Well, here's the thing. We've all been down this road, right? If you've been in crypto long enough, you've gotten scammed. If you haven't gotten scammed or close to getting scammed, you're not deep enough into the space. Keep going, right? So I don't know. When people told me that there was a fake Flux airdrop and they were kind of setting it up to look like that, I was like, oh, that's scary, but it's kind of cool because that means we're actually being noticed the way that
you made it.
You know what I mean? The scammers,
you finally made it.
Yeah, we made it. Made it to the big time, right? So I mean, I think people need to be very, very cautious. And as new people come into the space, we want to make it as easy as humanly possible. But back to you were talking about the pool. So let's click back there to miner pool real quick.
Yep.
The awesome thing about Flux is the community involvement. This developed UI. That's not part of the team. That is somebody that took the initiative out there and they wanted to do it to provide that. The community pool doesn't even have that development yet. So if you're mining on the Flux community pool, you're still accumulating your assets, but we weren't sure how we wanted to dole those assets out. And I think probably what we're going to do is mirror kind of what they developed here. So it was
Right.
so cool to see something developed. Like it was on our hit list, how we're going to do this. And all of a sudden here somebody comes and they jump in there. So, if you got an extra rig sitting around, throw it on there, mine some with those guys. It's kind of, they're supporting the project, and I love to see that shit. So, big shout out to those guys.
Digital Deal says, am I still eligible for rewards on the next snapshot if I don't claim my rewards like FLUX ETH, which currently has high fees? Yeah, you're still eligible.
Yep.
The snapshot is snapshot of mainly just your FLUX, but there has been snapshots of the other snapshot assets if you're still holding them in your wallet. So if you're still holding your ETH, your FLUX ETH snapshot, I would imagine you'd still get a claim on that because it's still technically yours in your wallet. You just haven't claimed it. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly right. So, I mean, think of it this way, if you've used Zelcore in the past, you know that your private keys are all in there. As long as you're holding those assets either in a node on Zelcore or a participating platform like CoinMetro, you'll know that you'll get captured in any one of those three ways.
Yep. And that includes like nodes and your rewards that you've got from your node. If you haven't moved them to your main wallet from your full node wallet, you still get claimed on those too. Those add in, which has been amazing.
And there are people that there are tax implications to these as well. So I recommend that you consult somebody in terms of your tax implications and wherever your jurisdictions are at. Just make sure that you're taking that into consideration. But there are people that prefer not to claim them and actually leave them, because once they claim them, then they're officially in particular areas that would be a taxable event. So they choose to leave it sit there, and they'll at some point they'll harvest that, and they'll take that hit. So right. I always recommend everybody look at this thing holistically and consult your laws locally. Make sure that you're following the law and paying your taxes.
All right, I got a good question for you.
Sure.
How did you guys develop per version of the wallet your UI? How did you go about doing that?
Well, the one thing that we're not short of is input from the community. So we get a lot of that.
That's clear to me.
Yeah, and honestly, we listened to not only the diehard. I mean, because really Zelcore was created for miners, for node ops, for people participating. They didn't want to have 15 wallets hanging out there. We want something where we can keep kind of one thing, and that's what we work out of. And that's how Zelcore was kind of formulated. But as it started to grow, we realized, well, actually, I think our target audience is more of the new users with the development of those advanced users. So we started soliciting input. We said, what are the things that you'd like to see in a platform that would make it almost seamless for you? And the response was overwhelming. We got a lot of input. We've done surveys. We've done, kind of going out there, user engagement. We've downloaded every damn wallet there is out there and looked at where they're deficient and where they're advanced. And we said, hey, who is doing this? And this is actually a very useful tool. We should replicate it and make it better. And that's ultimately what it was listening to the people that are going to use the platform, because then what happens is vicariously they become evangelists of the platform. Dan tells Mikkel about Zelcore because I can hold my Bitcoin and my Ethereum and my FLUX and all these different. Man, you got to check it out. It's super simple, and if you want to set up your exchanges, you can do that. And the features that are coming to Zelcore continue to keep kind of making it that one-stop shop. So that's the long and short of it. And I hope you guys like the new UI, because I sure do.
I love it.
It's been great.
And another
few questions over here in the chat. Digital's got a bunch of them, it looks like. Says we're having a lot of fake flux on PancakeSwap. How are we addressing this? I mean, technically you can't. You're free. Anyone's free to fork any coin and make a copy. Like it's That's all it is. But it's up to you as like the user to also do your due diligence of what's real and what's not.
I would say
don't ever go into anything blind, like ever.
You know, we reached out to Binance, we reached out to Pancake, we reached out to these different platforms to talk about it, and honestly, the input that we got back was, this is the wild fucking west, and if you're going to play in the wild west, you better make damn sure. It's like the first time we ever sent a Bitcoin transaction to an exchange, right? You're like copying the address and you're looking at it, copying it again. Okay, last 4 are the same, first 4 are the same, the whole address is good. Okay, hit send. Where the fuck's it at? Didn't show up in the exchange yet. What's going on? I'm freaking out. How long does this take? Oh my God, did I lose my money? And then there it is. Okay. All right. Well, for the very first time in a very long time, I don't feel that anxiety when I use Zelcore because I don't leave the platform. Everything's right there. So, you know, a lot of the people that are coming into this space now, they're not experiencing that anxiety till they start messing with shit like this. And once they start messing with things like this, they're like, all it takes is getting scammed one time, right? And you learned a lesson. You're not going to do that again, right? So double check your contract addresses. Always check with FLUX because we'll list our contract addresses in our Discord and on our website and everywhere else. If you check those things officially, then you'll be safe, right? So just double and triple and quadruple check. That's all I can say.
Yeah, because I mean, as you can see over here in Pancake Swap, and you should see here's the token address, which matches via C-Scan's token address right here, so you know it's there, and it tells you all of the data over here on Pancake Swap, which is the go-to for Binance Smart Chain anyway. As you can see, because that's quite a bit. It's not like in the millions or anything, but for someone that's for a coin that's like ventured out into the DeFi space from being a proof of work coin, and you knowing that these are mostly proof of work miners that are sending their coins in, it's great to see, in my opinion.
Well, that BTT pair down there, the third one down, that is actually, I believe, the third largest liquidity pool on that particular chain. So people are figuring it out, and like you said, most of them have to comprehend that I can do these things with FLUX that I've never done or even heard of before. So it's kind of unique as well. So the other thing that we didn't talk about, so we're looking at Pancake Swap here. This opens up the opportunity for us to really list easily on other platforms because they don't necessarily have to choose the primary chain, and that's been a barrier of entry for a lot of exchanges, right? So they have to figure out if you've ever worked with an exchange, and God, please don't ever do it.
I've had to deal with that.
It's a nightmare. We're lucky to have partners like Coin Metro and KuCoin and some of these other ones that are a little bit more knowledgeable in the space, but it can be very cancerous. And the biggest thing is they don't differentiate. They run these platforms and they don't understand the difference between a coin and a token. And these are the guys that are running the infrastructure, right? These are the guys that are running the exchange. So I have to sit there and explain for 20 minutes basically how to add these platforms. Now it's easier because we can say you can add the FLUX ETH or the FLUX KDA or the FLUX Binance Smart Chain or the FLUX Solana or the FLUX whatever. And that still represents the primary asset. There would be an extra step to get back to the primary chain, but you don't necessarily have to, just like we're doing with DeFi, Pancake, Uniswap, all these different platforms. You can do the same thing with centralized exchanges as well.
Correct. Grit's over here saying, I know that there was a Coinbase review process. I remember seeing that a few weeks ago. That's big and interesting. Is there one for Binance as well, or is it just Coinbase for now? Or
put it through this way.
Any other
I'll put it
new listings.
Well, I've not kept this quiet. My goal is to see FLUX on one of two exchanges or both of them. FTX, which I think is probably going to change the way that we look at these the centralized exchange ecosystem and what they're doing with Solana and Serum and all these different pieces.
Right.
FTX and Coinbase are the goals. So I would say with the people out there who say, well, when Binance, when Binance, when Binance. Binance has had their opportunity many times to list us. I can't get into the details or anything like that, but there is a criteria that we have internally, right? We want to be good stewards. We want to make sure this project matures effectively, and we want to take care of our user base.
Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't always align with everyone's ethos. Right. So, I think that in the end, I think it won't matter which platform we're added to, because I think that we're going to develop the ones that make sense. So, I would say my goal, and I'll tell anybody that'll listen to this, if Brian Armstrong's listening or Sam's listening to this, guys, I want to see Flux on your platforms. That's where the rubber meets the road, because I think we bring more value than any other platform out there right now, hands down, without a doubt. So
right on.
List us.
I love that it's a lot of coins based just like start trying to get listed on any possible exchange they can, and then that is also sometimes not always the best option, because you got a lot of pretty crummy exchanges out there, like pretty nasty ones. Some settle, they take your coins and you'll never see them again, and it's like, oh no, what did I do? Then it ruins it for you.
Yeah.
So I love that you base it off like integrity. Like you're like, I'm not gonna go for like the crummies, because you can, they're not gonna like really do anything much. They're like, yeah, we'll list you, no problem, but at the risk of your people who support you, it's a better judgment call to not do that.
Well, my thought philosophy around it is this: I take kind of a cypherpunk view in the fact that the individuals that are participating in the ecosystem are our primary concern, because without them, we don't grow, right? We don't grow at all. So if we put ourselves in a position where we would take a tier 1 listing at the cost of perhaps damaging the project with, somebody holding a massive amount of the asset that they just kind of rain down on. The logical ones that we've been adding, like KuCoin, we did a trading competition with them, which brought a lot of exposure to the platform. Gate.io, which added us, Coin Metro, which added us. I think Coin Metro is actually going to be a top 5 exchange very soon. I think what they're doing is very innovative, and I think that they're going to be up there at the top sooner or later. And the long answer to that question, whoever asked it is probably still sitting there, is like, we didn't answer my question yet. The answer to that question is we're gonna go after every platform that wants us, but we're not gonna participate with every platform, because we all know people have different goals or initiatives in this space, and they're not always aligned with the ethos of the project. So I hope that helps.
100%.
All right. If we don't have any other questions, I got a couple for myself.
Shoot.
In the app, what is the future use case for Zell ID?
Oh man, you're hitting on my sweet spot. So I would normally have my Zell ID shirt on, but I wanted to rep Zellcore today. But Zell ID is one of the more exciting parts of the platform, because having a self-sovereign ID that you can tie to your assets. I mean, if you didn't watch what happened in the States a few weeks ago as they were going through this legislative wrangling verbiage, first it was only proof of work projects. Then it was, okay, we'll add proof of stake in there. Well, holy shit, what if it's something that we haven't thought of yet? And that's not in there. Okay, well, the language is super restrictive. So what we're doing with Zellcore is to position ourselves in a position where Zell ID continues to develop out. Imagine doing AML KYC one time.
Oh, hell yes.
Moving from platform to platform and tying back to your Zellcore. That's exactly what Zell ID is. And as we start to get some of these regulatory guidance, and the reason that Zelcore sits in the States is because I think a lot of times, even though it's slow and laborious and kind of goofy, they tend to err on the side of technology development. And I don't think in the end they're going to stifle that innovation. But what I do see happening is I think that to give these individuals, these traders, these miners who are selling their assets, advanced tools to the ecosystem, you have to tie it to a self-sovereign ID. You have to be able to make it fluid between these different platforms. Nobody has seemed to do that yet, mostly because they're tribalistic to their own platform. If you go and you talk to some of these large players in the space, they have conceptually an idea how they're going to do it, and they don't necessarily want to participate with other platforms. Well, I think eventually they're not going to have a choice, and I think that that's where Zell ID comes into play. Not only that, not only the fintech or the DeFi or the financial sectors, but think about this as your Zell ID as your self-sovereign ID for your electronic medical records. Or think of it as, maybe a driver's license or maybe voting rights, right? You could tie these things all back to your self-sovereign ID. So there's a lot of exciting things, because from the cypherpunk in me, I don't like anything that ties me to my actual identity. But reality is if I can control those pieces, right, that makes it even more interesting. That makes it something that I believe that I can control. If I don't want somebody to have my information, then I can simply retract that from them, just like a public address. I can provide them a public address. They can see what they have to see, and then I can retract it when I'm done. So that's where Zell ID really starts to flourish. I think it's probably one of the most unsung pieces of the project, other than decentralized two-factor authentication. And I think that combination between those two things actually builds up a massive use case for Zelcore as that browser to blockchain.
Right.
Good question.
You just made my heart just like explode
Go
with joy. Yeah.
So Gris has asked, and I kind of hit on it earlier. He's saying, is there what's the status possibility of NFTs being able to be stored and viewable inside the Zelcore wallet? Is that an option?
Yeah, it's absolutely going to happen. So we recently partnered with Hup.life. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but these guys are socially conscious around development of NFTs, specifically how the way, just like DeFi, right? The Wild Wild West, and NFTs are the Wild Wild West at this point. There's really no reason or rhyme to these different platforms. They're minting shit. They're selling it. It's kind of wonky. Does the artist really even know that it's been minted? I could simply, for instance, somebody went out and minted an NFT of me. I had no fucking clue. I logged on one day and there's an NFT of my face. It's kind of quasi blurred out, but I was like, shit. Well, I was kind of pissed off, first of all, because nobody bought it, right? so that kind of upset me. I was going to have to buy it myself. But what it did was it started to get my wheels turning about how NFTs can actually be used appropriately. So copyright laws and things like that. Hup Life, that's exactly what they're doing. They're looking at the socially conscious ways that they engage. And I can tell you right now, and I'd love to drop a name right here. I've had a very lengthy conversation with a very famous artist, and what they're looking to do is exactly something like that, is to release pieces of their platform, what they've developed, right? And it's a let's say it's a rap artist, right? They want to outsource that, and they want an NFT that can be controlled to a certain extent. Like, so you would have geofencing for particular areas, and it would fall in the regulatory guidelines of those things. And it's copyrighted, right? So is there a place for these wild, wild west of NFTs? Absolutely. But when you get down to brass tacks of what NFTs, non-fungible tokens, really can do, is it can create this whole different this revenue model for these artists that are creating this talent. And it would be very easy for me to go out and take Starry Night and create an NFT off of it and try to sell it. Is that copyright infringement? Who would be upset about that? I think that's your next regulatory hurdle. And yes, So the long answer is we 100% want to see NFTs in Zelcore, and we want to be able to have them actually viewable and actually tradable as well. So, I think in the end down the road, I think you'll have two different kind of camps, like you have this DeFi world and the centralized world. I think you're going to have the wild west of NFTs and the development, like the cyberpunks that they did and things like that. Very cool. Do I think it's kind of ridiculous? Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I don't think paying $500,000 in ETH for a Nifty is realistic. But what I do think is realistic is paying to participate in a artist and how they're going to provide their service to many and be partly ownership of that. Right. Record labels have done this shit for years, right? They're the ones that really kind of rule the roost. And these artists that are coming out now, they're like, yeah, there's a better way to do this shit. So I think you're going to see that. I think it's hup.life. Check it out.
It was in the latest update, wasn't it?
Yeah, we just added the asset. So
I was like, I've seen something in the latest update that hup.life was in it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming out of DeFi, and I know you guys have fell down the rabbit hole like I have. I just think we have to be measured and we have to be paced about how when we add something to Zelcore or we bring a partner project onto FLUX, we feel confident that they're doing something in the best interest of their end users and the community. And they're, even from a regulatory standpoint, they're looking at things the right way. So, I think there can be a balance. This cypherpunk world where we want privacy and autonomy and anonymity, and I think there can be the other world where we have this hybrid piece where you have a self-sovereign ID. I do AML KYC one time. I don't have to go to these shadeball ass exchanges and provide them my personal information just because I want to trade a shitcoin, right? That's bad, right? But if that shadeball exchange accepted my Zell ID, it would be one-time AML KYC. So yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of awesome stuff out there.
I do have like one personal question. So Zelcore wallet, when will or would it be something that someone would have to build for like a dApp browser? So somewhere they could literally stay inside the wallet, and whether they're on desktop or mobile, mainly most people use the dApp browser for the mobile device, to stay in their wallet and still transact and like go into PancakeSwap to use their assets. Is that something that is coming, or is that something that someone still needs to develop? Well,
it could come tomorrow, but there are barriers of entry specifically for that, because we are basically held accountable. You can't see it because I don't know what the hell's going on, to whoever your providers are. So Apple or Android or in a different platform, they see dApps as a disruptive technology. So they're not very happy about this platform where there's these decentralized applications running, because they view two risks primarily, and their most important risk is lost revenue, right? They don't give a shit about the moral obligations. They care about the dollars, right? The second one would be the control of those particular items. You've seen this with, deplatforming different applications and, censoring things and things like that. It takes away their control piece. So the answer to your question is, if we put a dApp browser in Zelcore today, more than likely it would be banned from iTunes. That's just how it is. Android, maybe not as much. Right. So what we have to do is get creative on the platforms that we develop on to maybe make that look a little bit different. So you could see a dApp browser running on FLUX where it's internet based, and you don't have to rely on a app-based platform. If you've used any of the FLUX dApps that are floating around out there, like the games and the Minecraft servers and Rosetta Stone and Rosetta and all these different platforms, you know that you don't have to go in and download anything. You just go to the website and boom, you're there, ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
So I think what you're going to see is us pull back from kind of the centralized DApp inside of Zelcore, but a list of those apps and how to then launch them on the web, right? Or on the platform, because really it's the platform, it's the FLUX platform. So we do this, and if you kind of wonder how that would look, if you open up Zelcore today and you go into the app section, you'll see coin request. If you click on coin request, it then redirects to a website, and then you can use coin request right there. So if we had it natively inside of Zelcore, it would be viewed as a threat to the revenue generation model for Apple and some of these other big players. So we're just on the cusp of figuring out how these pieces are going to work, and they're going to work. The powers that be are going to work in the exact opposite direction that we want to work in. So, this is a wonderful time to be alive and see this shit happen. So I hope that answered.
I also have some input. There could also be the reason why you don't want a DApp browser built inside of FLUX is that someone could possibly just be that smart and make the Web3 interaction malicious and could go through FLUX, through the network, tag your device, and to have it download something that it's not supposed to.
Well, I mean, you run the risk of any new emerging technologies having exploits. So, our goal is to make sure that we engage the white hat folks and reward them handsomely for making sure that we find vulnerabilities like that, something like an injection or something of that nature. Will it ever be exploited? I'm hoping not. We've built a technology that is I feel rock solid, and we have a bug bounty program. We work with SVE in terms of reporting. We now have a new bug reporting portal and website. So we're constantly looking at this technology to make sure that those things don't happen. But you always run the risk with emerging technology. So, I would just tell people, be careful what they're doing, double check what they're clicking on. I mean, this is, you look at the rise in ransomware and some of these other pieces out there, it's just kind of user education. So we're going to try to make it, like I said, 2 clicks, right? Make it super easy for individuals to make sure that they're protected from those things. I hope that helped.
That answered. But also, what the heck is Eve? I know you guys have it as a virtual assistant, but I need some more elaboration because it sort of feels like GitHub's autopilot to me.
Eve is going to be the fundamental underpinnings of the user interface for Zelcore. Okay, so our goal, as we talked about earlier, was to create this, reduce this barrier of entry for people to come into the space, make it super simple, right? So if I hand, if my son decides that he wants to participate, Eve would almost be like Siri for blockchain. So the example that I use is, let's hypothetically say that you launch Zelcore, and in Zelcore, it knows that you have ETH, right? And it says, hey Dan, do you want to learn about ETH staking? Well, shit, yeah, I got ETH. I want to find out about that. So tell me about ETH staking. And then it's going to give you a rundown of exactly what that ETH staking looks like. And then at the end of it, it's going to say, would you like to stake your ETH now? And behind the scenes, this is all transpiring. This is all, it all is seamless. So these end users, these individuals, it's almost like a seamless piece. I mean, there was a point in time, like, to get a map to go somewhere, I'm dating myself here, right? You went to the internet, you went to MapQuest, you put in where you're going, you put in the address, and then it would pull it up, and then you have 5 different ways to pick of where you're going. And I was like, take this way. I want to avoid toll roads. I want to do this. That shit is get me to wherever, and boom, it's there. So those pieces are still happening in the background, right? It's still looking at, what is the cheapest price of Bitcoin? We have 15 centralized exchanges and we have DeFi in there as well. It's the cheapest to buy here. So, I want to buy some Bitcoin. Okay, I found it at Coinbase for, X amount. Would you like to purchase that now? Yes, boom. Use primary account 1? Yes, boom, done. So Eve is that interactive piece. And again, I don't see anything like this in technology. It's not like I can open up my TD Ameritrade account and tell TD Ameritrade, go get me some GBTC, right? It's not going to do that. So this really, what this does is it creates some of the major heavy lifting pieces that need to be done on the backside. It makes it blend into the background and makes the user interface super, super simple. So Eve is probably, that's our, if you say that's our moonshot, right? So Eve, when it develops out completely, it changes how people crypto. It really does. So, and there is AI integration into that as well. So it starts to learn questions that you ask it without collecting information about the end user, because ultimately that's the goal, is we don't collect end user information. But what it does do is it can gather that information, specifically just a generalized question to see, hey, there was 500 people and they all asked about ETH staking, and it must be in the news. So let's bring that up and let's shed some light on those things. So, that's kind of how Eve really will function, and I think that's how you'll see it develop out in the future.
All right. Now, how is the AI and machine learning going to be used? Because I know earlier we said that, how nodes are going to be used. How are we going to use that computational power? That right there sounds like the perfect answer. Building up Eve. Yep.
And yeah, we had that conversation before this started, so it was kind of an interesting conversation. And we're always looking for use cases to keep it decentralized. And the other point is, there's ways to collect information and be able to use that information without giving up your anonymity, your privacy. I mean, because that's really our focus is, a simple, how do I stake ETH question. It's not going to really reflect. It's just going to pull, right? So I think you have the ability to toggle that on and off. So if you're super cypherpunk and you don't want any of that shit, then you can turn it off and you're all happy with it. But I would say the majority of end users that are coming into the space, they want the assistance. They want the ability for us to find these trends, this aggregated information, and be able to help them through the process. Because really, adoption hinges on the education we provide our end users. That's just what it is. You can talk about all this nifty fucking technology and none of it matters if we can't get our end users to use it effectively and feel comfortable with it. So that's kind of the goal of Eve.
Digital Deals has a really good question. Apparently Grits agrees, and he says Flux has been building for years. What are we doing? PR, marketing, and outreach. Not many others know about your project today. As like Grits is saying, the same thing. Yes, he's been trying to get Flux noticed more through Twitter, Facebook, and other ways. But could you say other PR routes are being taken? So it's two questions.
So
same thing.
I can tell you top level. So, I mean, essentially, there's two different components to any marketing and PR. It's the social involvement of the community and their engagements, and then there's the actual marketing of the project. So, I'll for instance, we just had our first XDAO vote, and we actually, the first vote was specifically around marketing and PR, and there was 1 million Flux that was allocated. And to a community-based and community-driven team. And if you have questions about that, you can come to Discord and ask Bad English G, because he's kind of one that's spearheading that. That is that's XDAO at its finest, right? So the community came together, they put together a hell of a proposal. The node operators all voted on it, and it unanimously just about passed. And now they have resources to start these social engagements, right? The second piece is how do we cultivate it more on a professional level. So if you look at what Flux has started to do, our Medium articles are more precise, they're more well developed, they're more engaging. You're looking at more marketing and PR. We're actually working with a marketing and PR company that's focusing on branding. You'll notice that the branding is starting to become more unified, and that's important for name recognition. And I think in the end, trying to market in a bear market is like pissing in the wind. So when people are upset and say, hey, we're 4 years into it and we're, the marketing was anything but subpar, right? No, that was by design, because there isn't enough marketing and PR that you could develop in a bear market that would move the needle incrementally in terms of development. And I mean, a lot of people are concerned with price. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. And it would be a serious waste of resources, right? I want to remind everybody too, that Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing and PR team. Bitcoin doesn't have, paid shills that they go on Twitter and do. And it's grown just perfectly the way that it is. And I'm not saying that's the path that Flux is going to take, because I think we do need marketing and PR, because we're targeting a completely different demographic with Flux. We're looking to take a chunk of AWS's market share. So I think, you need to, but that marketing and PR needs to be geared differently than just going on Twitter and creating this FOMO around it. We want to do it in a more professional way. So I hope that answered your question. There's a lot of resources, dollars and cents, and input from the community, and a big shout out to, the Flux Army. If you haven't seen, we're number one. We've been number one or in the top 5 trending social, are trending on the, what is it called? The social media thing. I don't know I can't remember it off the top of my head. But we've been trending number 1, number 2, all the way down to number 5 for several weeks at least. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I actually had to turn Twitter notifications off, because it sounded like a damn shotgun going off in the background. I mean, it's been crazy. So people are catching on to exactly what the project is. And the other big piece is from a marketing standpoint, is sometimes it just takes a project changing in the space to bring attention to you. When ETH moves to proof of stake, those miners are going to be looking for another platform. And when What to Mine finally updates their to show the parallel assets and what you can gain with Flux, that changes the game. We plan on aggressively marketing and going after those miners that are going to be orphans at some point in time, because ETH turned their back on everyone. So I hope that sheds some light on it. And it's one of our top priorities, is to make sure that everyone that's mining, everyone that's in the DeFi space knows about Flux. They might not like us, but if they don't like us, they don't know us. So that's a big deal.
All right. And so we are hitting our normal hour that we allocate to these. So is there any final things that you would like to say, maybe that we haven't hit on today? All the questions that have kind of sparked for you?
No, I just, the big thing for me is I want to give a real big thank you to you guys for being champions of the space. We lost one of ours, right, with Savage, and it hit me hard, because these people become like family.
They really do.
And that's how you should treat everyone. Community members, miners, validators.
Savage was one of our champions, right? He was doing Flux and Zell when it wasn't cool. And those are the type of people that we're looking to protect in the space. We want to cultivate those people, right? Because we see a shit ton of value in those individuals, right? So thank you for what you guys do. I want to thank our community. I want to thank your community for the opportunity to come on here today and just basically talk for an hour and tell you all about Flux. I appreciate that, guys. And yeah, I hope everybody go out there, follow us on Twitter at RunOnFlux, at Zelcore_IO. Check out our RunOnFlux.io website and come join the Discord. I mean, Mikkel, you can testify that it is a wonderful group to be part of, which is very hard to find, really hard to find in this space, and it's growing exponentially. So I look forward to seeing a bunch of new faces.
Truly, we truly miss. You're right there, Grits. I definitely miss him.
I miss him too.
Every day.
Good man.
So
good man.
I do appreciate you coming on today and talking about all of this, because it needs to be talked about. I mean, as we try to focus this channel, DCA Venture focuses on a lot of different things. Mining, trading, even staking, as well as building brands and DeFi. So it's needed to be on here for this particular purpose, because it is a DeFi oriented thing and needed to deep dive into it, right? And thank you for coming on to do that and to guide us down without getting eaten by the sharks. You know what I mean? So I appreciate it, and thank you all in the chat for great questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Definitely helps. Grit's final question, he says, what is API looks to be broken on Flux for proof of work on what to mine? Yes, it is a little off, but I mean, also
we're working with what to mine specifically on that as well, because again, disruptive technology is not always pretty.
Right.
It's developmental, but I will tell you that what to mine guys have been fantastic with working with us, and I'm looking forward to getting it just right for the community.
Soon, guys. Promise. Soon. All right. So we'll catch y'all on the next time, guys. Make sure you look at the links down below. There will be a Run on Flux link down that you can go and check out here after this is posted, as well as make sure you like, subscribe with the bell notifications so time that we go live or post videos here on the channel. We would greatly appreciate it, guys. We'll be back tonight for Mining After Dark, where we'll be talking about nothing but mining, of course. So I'm sure this conversation is going to come up tonight as well. So stay tuned, hit that bell notification so you know when that video goes live tonight. And thank you, Dan, for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Hey, have a good one, man.